was for cleaning brushes which contained lime. By cleaning, the water becomes rich in lime. Because I use hydrated lime, underwater, hydrated lime will not set, but in contact with the air, it takes CO2 and it will crystallize. It will have its carbonatation process. This is what happens here at the surface of this water, because this is rich in lime. So the water evaporates, or starts to evaporate, but not the lime. And the lime starts to set and forms here, and the setting of lime can be very complicated. It can even recarbonate afterwards. It can be rhombic, octorhombic, all kinds of different forms. And this form is calcite. This is the purest limestone forming that happens here.
How long does that take?
Now,
how long do you let that sit? And you sit it, have it...
Next day you have the starting of the layer, nearly immediately.
So you can start using this?
No, this is why when working with lime, workers with lime never throw away their water because it is rich in lime. So if you have to pre-wet your surface, you can do it with ordinary water, or you can do it with water containing a little bit of... This is like gold, you know, for a lime specialist.
Lime specialist, that's amazing.
Yes.
So they take that and you brush.
What happens in a lime render, or when you build with lime? Let's say a render. The render is a mixture of sand, water, and lime in this case. Now, when this starts to dry out and the lime starts to set and to carbonate, what happens? The water will evaporate, but the water will go... The damp is rich in lime. Now, the water, the H2O, will evaporate, but the lime contained in solution in the damp will stay on the surface
and get hard.
So it will form a very thin hide of
hide.
Pure,
you're right. That's it. It's
pure lime on top of it.
Okay.
Now, if you render and you wait until this is perfectly dry, and then you add paint, you will paint on top of this thin calcite layer.
Which you want to do because it protects...
No, you don't want to do this.
Oh, you don't?
No, you don't want to do this. This is why real lime specialists will paint a fresco. So you keep the render fresh, and you put the paint on top of the fresh lime as soon as possible. You have to wait a little bit, of course, because otherwise when the lime is really fresh, I mean half an hour or an hour or so of a few hours, then your brush will mix the paint into the render, and you don't want this. So you have to wait a little bit, but then you put the paint on top of this, and then this two-layer system starts to dry. What happens with the damp? The damp comes from the render, and it contains in solution, it contains a certain amount of lime. Now the lime is not left in between the render and the paint. No, the damp goes first through the render and then through the paint. So your calcite hide is left at the surface of your paint, and this gives an extra protection, and this is, in my opinion, the reason why even wall paintings from Roman times still exist today, thanks to the extra protection given by this calcite. Filled with hempcrete, and this starts to dry, and you wait until the hempcrete is completely dried out, then all the calcite which has been transported by the damp into the surface has changed, carbonized into calcite. And then you start to paint, you paint on top of the, or you start to render first, then your render will be on top of the calcite. I'm going to finish this with a render which is fit for outside treatment. And I do this, for this I developed a special mixture, because we have lime in here, so the render for outside is also lime based, but to make it better resistant we give it a better resistance by adding a pozzolan, which is a volcanic ash that we find nearest by here is in Germany. The Romans have discovered this, and it is I distilled this formula from countless old formulas. We should not forget that in the past people could not go and order what they wanted. They usually had to look for solutions which were locally available. So I distilled my own composition based on the old composition ones, which even go back to the old Roman times, which is about 2000 years old. Apparently in the German town Trier is a Porta Nigra, what the Romans have built, and at the wall, I didn't see it yet, but a piece of the wall should contain a outside render made with this Strass pozzolan, which nowadays still is intact. Prepare just the quantity you are sure to be able to handle within 3-4 hours. I offer this pre-mixed because some of the ingredients like marble powder and this volcanic pozzolan are not available on the normal market. This is a special one, a special concept for this type of render.
Natural bristles, I gather?
Mainly natural, but,
horsehair?
but yeah, there is horsehair in it, yeah, but also synthetic, because as you will see, this is not like paint, you know, this is more demanding. So if you work a long time, the usual brushes will be here full with a species here, and then the brush is like this, and it doesn't work anymore. You will lose too much energy. So this is a better one, better resistant to that kind of problem. And I add a little bit of water, so sometimes we can take some extra water, which will help for the for applying. If it's not enough water, you can always add a little bit more. It is a bit like cooking, you know. But
and you are a very good chef in the kitchen. You've prepared some lovely meals for me.
Now, we bring this to the hempcretes like this. And it will fill all the little irregular irregularities we have in the surface. It is not only used on hempcrete, but also on old brick walls, etc., to restore them. Because when our ancestors applied this, it was not that our ancestors were lazy people too. They wanted to be efficient as possible, and as cheap as possible, as fast as possible.
Well, they didn't have that many options
They
on
didn't
the
have
very
to-
tools to use, right? Yeah. And they did quite well.
And I do this movement up and down. Why is this? You can see that there is a structure
It's beautiful. Yes, I can see.
in this surface. You could do it like this too, you know. But if it is really outside and it rains, then the rain will have difficulties of going down, where as you do it this way, it will stream off much faster.
How long?
In our country we call this the simple farmer's logic. You know? It is also important to have pre-wetted the wall to avoid the water being soaked up by the wall before it can do its work inside this plaster system. This is with sand, with fine sand.
Very fine sand, a special sand.
Stucco is another thing. That's an Italian name for plaster. That can be 2001 different types of plaster, you know. But this is a much simpler system. You don't need sophisticated equipment. Just a brush is already working.
It looks so much easier than doing it with the various spatulas that
Oh, with the
I was
yes, of
trained on.
course,
This is
yeah.
much easier.
And with the spatula, your work is much heavier.
Heavier,
Ooh, yeah,
right,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Plus more delicate. If you make a mistake, then you'll have a mistake. Whereas if you have a little mistake here, then even afterwards, after drying, you can just repair it. It's okay.
Lovely. It's
It's
okay.
very simple, you
It's
know?
okay. Voila. Hi, Wolf. What are you doing?
We're going to make a good lime casein based paint.
For the wall,
We did
just
the
rendered.
rendering. So we are going to finish the rendering a fresco, and it is still fresh, with a layer of paint, because this will give the best and strongest way of connection between the two layers. I could explain this, but maybe I should do this in a book or something, because it's quite complicated. So 1 volume of paint. This is a mixture I developed based on the ancient paints, like in the from early Middle Ages on. All the churches in practically whole Europe were finished at the inside with a thin layer of lime plaster, and this lime plaster has been finished with a thin layer of lime casein paint. And while adding the casein to lime, if you use only lime, then and you pass the dry paint, it will come off. So you need an extra kind of binder. Now, as extra kind of binder, you could use anything which glues, from potato starch, rice starch, the cooking water from spaghetti, skimmed milk, rest of beer or wine, anything which glues a little bit when it dries. but those natural additives are not water resistant, which means if you make them wet with a wet sponge, you could take it off again. But our ancestors were very clever. They added a soft cheese to it, a cheese like cottage cheese.
It's what was available.
When it was available, but yeah, it was available in Greece, in Spain, Italy, all those hot countries, usually from goat's milk. We use casein, pure casein, and the casein I use is a food grade quality, which is in powder form.
Is that the casein? Casein? Is that what you
Casein.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Because I offer the paint in powder form, and why is this? When you add the water and possibly the air, a chemical process starts. The casein with the lime forms a calcium caseinate, and this is a process you cannot stop. This means the paint that you prepare should be freshly made, and you should not make more than you will use the same day.
Because it won't, you can't let it stay out and then
you
reheat
yes,
it? Or?
If you would have a shop with ready-made pre-mixed paints, within a week it would stink from the rotting paint.
Oh.
Yeah. But now the casein exists also in powder form, the lime and fine lime powder and all this kind of stuff, and also the pigments are very fine powders, so we mix them in powder form, which makes the transport much easier. 1 kilo of powder is approximately 2 kilos of paint. So we are not carrying water from A to B to C to D. Again, it's only the real paint, and you add your own water. So now we mix this. Now we have to wait. That's the disadvantage. Well, disadvantage. We let this rest now for half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, in order to have this calcium caseinate process starting up.
Okay, we
Yes.
shall do that.
So we will have, I don't know,
So while we wait for a few minutes,
we'll have a coffee or something.
okay, we'll have a coffee
yeah.
or tea. But
Or normally, if it is a real larger job, then you make your first mix when you start, and then you prepare everything, you put your ladders, your stuff. By that time, your paint is ready. Before you start painting,
okay.
you make the next charge, and then afterwards you can work continuously without stopping. And
Okay.
you also always will have fresh paint available.
So a question, a personal
Yes.
question. How did you, were you born, were you christened with the name Wolf?
Yes, exactly.
Were
yes.
you?
Yeah.
Ah,
That's my official name, yeah.
wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, a lot of power to that name.
I was born into a special, more artistic family. My mother was reading Wolfgang von Goethe, the Faust, which is not an evident reading subject for, yeah. And she was so, it became Wolf, yeah.
I love,
So I became
lovely
Wolf,
story. Very appropriate.
yeah. And I was born nearly on the same date of month as von Goethe, yeah. Who afterwards has influenced people like Rudolf Steiner, yeah, which is anthroposophical systems that he worked out. And then it's not a joke, but I am one of the co-creators of a Steiner school. Yeah.
Really? How
Yes,
did that
yeah,
happen?
yeah.
How did
I've
that
been
come
teaching
about?
English there too. Yeah. And one of my daughters is now officially
A
for many
teacher?
years, a teacher there in the school.
It's very popular in America too.
Is it?
There's
Oh,
Rudolf
wonderful.
Steiner.
Wonderful, yeah.
There's several.
Well, and those are effectively the kind of information that I use to compose my colors, and so this system with thinking, feeling, and the will. This is secretly incorporated in here. Also, the choice of the colors has a relation with music. It has a relation with the stars, with the days of the week, with our chakras. Because we have, I've also
You smiled
studied,
because we've been talking about our
I've
chakras.
also studied shiatsu, which is acupressure.
I'm
So
familiar.
I learned to work with the
with it.
energy of humans, and then the colors, they perfectly fit to one of the most important chakras we have here, and we have the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, dark blue, and violet. Here's the indigo and violet. It doesn't start there and it doesn't end there. The red starts from infrared, which is the warmth and the heat of Mother Earth. Some insects can see this as a color, and it does not stop with violet, it stops with ultraviolet, which is our connection, the supernatural, our connection to the cosmos. And this is the little secret of my paint. This paint also reflects invisible colors. We don't see them with our eyes, but you can feel this. And this gives the extra special effect of those kind of natural paints, which I did not invent, I just remake them based on knowledge which goes back to Middle Ages, to Roman times, and even to early Egyptian sources. So.
How lovely. Thank you.